Hi, this is Kareen. I'm also known as Medium Kareen. Welcome to my podcast, Walking on Feathers. Listen in and experience my journey of self-discovery through different spiritual teachings and healings. Watch me wake up and within doing so, observe as I help to assist you in your awakening as well. I hope you enjoy this episode. Welcome everyone to this week's episode of Walking on Feathers. I have, so I call you my healer whenever I talk about you. I've been talking about you for like a year. I have Kerri here with me.
Hello.
Hello. So I thought Kerri would be the best person to be on to discuss consciousness. So where do we begin? What is consciousness?
To keep it super simple, consciousness is just awareness, self-awareness. So as you increase levels of self-awareness, you become aware of all of who you are. So it's not just the human facet. It's some people would call it the high self, the soul self, the master self, the I am that I am, whatever language.
Right.
You're connecting to all of who you are.
I like that you say language because I think one of the things that has been confusing me are all the different types of labels. I didn't realize it was all the same thing.
Yeah, and we have to use language in order to have a shared experience,
right?
In order to communicate. So when we feel and sense into these facets of ourself, it's a feeling thing. It's typically not a mental exercise. We're having an experience. So then in order to communicate that experience, we inevitably use language.
Right.
And language almost always falls short. And so you know how it is to feel that super expansive state.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you're wanting to share that state, it's like, oh, it's expansive. It was free. It was love. And even as you're saying those words, it's so diminished compared to the feeling state that you had. And so everyone has an experience in these different ways, and then they communicate it. So depending on your belief structure, your history, you're going to probably use a certain language to describe it.
So consciousness, though, ultimately, would you say it's our spirit, it's our soul?
Well, all of you is that. So you, Kareen, is a facet of you, the I am, we'll call it.
What's a facet? Can you define that?
A facet is, let me find language. It's a part.
Yeah, I just heard that in my head right before you said it.
It's like if you think of consciousness, now we know consciousness is ever expanding and infinite, but just for the sake of clarity, say you think of consciousness as a bubble.
Okay.
Inside the bubble would be your human forms, the human facet. You would have, say, the facet of you that expresses itself in other realms. You would have the soul self, which is having all the experiences. You'd have the I am. So it's all contained in your consciousness.
Got it. So I feel like when most people think of consciousness, they are limiting it to the soul or their human self.
Yeah. And that's fine for a while because as you have experiences, you'll realize how big and expansive you really are.
Right. So I had an experience on Monday with you. I had a session with Kerri, and I don't even remember how you got me there, but all of a sudden I had this I'm trying to find language, awareness that I'm not Kareen.
Yes.
That's a part of me. But so the best way I can explain it is Kareen's Kareen. Kareen has this personality. She can be bubbly. She can suffer from anxiety and depression, and she can be very critical. And there's all of these personality traits that Kareen embodies, but I'm not that. I'm above that. And I feel like not above it and like I'm better, above it where I have this higher perspective of Kareen, and it has given me the ability to take me out of my mind.
Yes.
So like before, where I didn't realize I was doing this week has been like nuts for me when it comes to my awareness, because I'll be, I don't know, like in the middle of driving or something, then I realize I'm thinking about the past or about the future. And then the essence of me will show me that I'm doing that. And then it's like I'm watching myself.
Yeah. You become the observer.
Yes.
It's the way to get beyond your limited identities. It's a way to re-identify. Because ultimately, the whole point of realization or embodied enlightenment is to let go of all your identities and identify as your I am, at the same time being here in this realm of duality. So that takes a high level of awareness, and that can be overwhelming, but this is just how it looks like, smells like, tastes like. This is how it is to embody it. First, you become the observer witness to yourself. So you don't identify as Kareen with anxiety and limitations and the I am not this enough or the I am not that enough.
Right.
You're now observing that you're in 2 dimensions, 3 dimensions at the same time. You're Kareen. You haven't left this realm. You're driving, and you're the I am, we'll call it, or high self, soul self, or the observer, the master self. You're not in time.
Yes.
So you can be in both at the same time.
That's what I feel like. I feel like I'm in between. And it's weird too, because I've suffered from what they've labeled disassociation disorder. And I feel like, yes, I have that, but then I also feel like it's part of this transformation.
Yeah. So feel the difference between the two, because
there's no fear there.
Exactly. So it's not part of disassociation in the way that medically we would describe that, or psychologically or whatever.
Yeah.
This is different because it's not out of suffering or fear. You're not in duality. This is an expansion of consciousness, we'll say, which is awareness.
Right. I think what helped me is there was a shaman, and he had the same disorder, and he told me you can trust, because when you have the disassociation, you're watching yourself, and then you kind of freak the fuck out. It's kind of like eating an edible. I don't know if you've eaten an edible, but you've like, it's scary. You feel like you're going to die. It's and you feel like you're not part of yourself, or you're watching yourself. So I would freak out. And so he told me you can trust yourself. Think of it as being on autopilot. You can trust yourself being on autopilot. And after he told me that, whenever it's happened, I realized that I can trust myself. I'm not out of control. It's just I'm observing myself.
Yes. So that's a change of perception.
Yeah.
So that goes back to the consciousness question of everything is your perception. So you change your perception, you change your entire reality.
Right.
Just like what you experienced. It's not like the thing changed. Your perception of it changed, which changes everything.
And my because I'm thinking, well, how, because people are going to ask, well, how can my perception change? Your perception changes from your human experience. Is that correct?
Yeah. By just that experience, him sharing wisdom, you receiving wisdom, you having a new experience, it changes your perception.
That's and I feel like a lot of the fear, though, changes too. Because I feel like you get so fearful that you are open to new experiences because you're so sick of feeling the fear.
That's part of the beauty of this realm, is the duality. It's like you have a certain experience, which is based on your perception, which is based on patterning, beliefs, thought forms, belief systems, identities.
Yes.
And then you have experience after experience after experience. And then you reach a point of like, no more. I'm done.
Yeah.
I can't take it.
Yes.
And then you're open to have a different experience. But a lot of times we have to reach that point.
Right.
I call it a crisis point.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be a crisis.
Right.
You know, it's like if you have these experiences, what happens is you start listening better. You're more present more of the time. And so it doesn't take the crises to reach the enough. It's like, no thanks. Like it can be that simple.
Yes.
If you're present.
Right.
But if you're not, then you're in the head, you're in the beliefs, you're in the thought forms, you're in the that perception of I can't, or it's afraid, or, you know, and then you reach your enough point, whatever that is.
Your enough points when you get fucking sick and tired of yourself. That's what I got. I'm sick, and I told my friend, I'm so just sick of myself and my bullshit.
Yes, that's an enough point.
Yeah.
Some people aren't consciously aware of their enough point, and so it could be a different kind of crisis, a health crisis, a financial crisis, a relationship crisis, you know, whatever. It's just a point in time where you just can't go forward in the same way anymore. It's a pattern disrupt.
Yeah. So mine came through, I'll share. I had gotten blackout wasted the day before I saw Kerri, but not on purpose. Me and my husband went out on a date, and I think I had 3 or 4 drinks. I wasn't like, you know, slamming them. And it didn't make sense to me at the time, but I definitely feel like that was meant to happen. Because I came to Kerri and I had the intention, like, there's no way she's going to help me make me feel better. And you helped me see Kareen's patterning. And that's like part of Kareen's story, but that's not who I am. And then I realized I have control over it. And now I have no desire to drink.
Yes. And the only reason I would be picky about your language is I would say you have choice over it.
Yes.
More than control.
Right. Okay. I like that better too.
You know,
before I felt like stuck in it.
Exactly. So then when we're stuck in something and mentally we want clarity.
Right.
So lack of clarity makes us go into control.
Right.
Which is a lot of energy. It's not the best, it's not the most efficient use of energy, because we know it's like if you're trying to control, ultimately you can't control others.
Right.
So the only thing you can do is have control, or I would say better word, choice in yourself. So you can do exactly what you did, where you become your observer, your witness, and then you can make a new choice. But that's why all spiritual teachers teach presence, why it's such a big thing, because if you're present, you're aware.
Right.
You're aware of how you're reacting to stimuli, people, places, things.
Right.
You're aware of the belief system, thought form, your perception. And then once you're aware of it, you can make a new choice. But if you're not aware of it, you're just in it.
Right. And then the control, I would say, Kareen would be focused on, I have to be in control. I can't do this. I can't do this. I can't do this. And then I do it because I'm telling it's just like this cycle.
Exactly. Because that's basically power, duality, meaning you want to go into control so that you can feel whatever it is you want to feel. Good about yourself. You're a good person. You're this, you're that, you know, whatever.
Right.
And then you set down these new rules, regulations for yourself, which isn't going to the level or the aspects of consciousness that are reaching for those things in the first place.
Right.
So then you're just trying to control these aspects, but they're the aspects of self that only know how to perceive that way, or only know how to reach for the drink to feel more relaxed or open or numb or whatever. So it's like a cover up, but it's short lived.
Right.
Because until you become aware, you can't choose to move through life in a different way. You haven't changed your perception yet.
Right. And I feel like with the whole alcohol thing, someone once told me, like, in order to lose weight or whatever, it shouldn't be so hard. And it always messed with my head, because I'm like, well, then why isn't it easy for me? But now this whole choice, like, I'm not saying I'm never going to drink again, but I have no desire to drink. And I know that when Kareen drinks, it gives me anxiety, and I don't like the way that it makes her feel. I know the way that I'm talking, everyone's going to think I'm crazy, but I'm just trying to paint the picture of like this newfound perspective.
Yeah.
Can we talk? Okay, so right now I'm in the observer stage. Can we talk the steps? Like, what comes next? Is there another step up with the awareness, or
always? But first, how do you get to the observer stage?
How do I get to the observer stage? That's an amazing question.
Say you're having just a normal life experience, like
presence.
Yeah. So say we'll just use your example. So say you're at dinner and you're having this lovely time, and you order a glass of wine and you're drinking, and there's a point in that process in which Kareen, whichever Kareen is in charge in that moment, is choosing to have the second glass or have the third glass. So it becomes a slippery slope.
Right.
So if you're present, you're aware.
Mm-hmm.
You're aware of how your body feels. You're aware of your thoughts. You're aware of your reactions. Say you're having an interaction with your spouse and you're aware of if you feel insecure or frustrated or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
that's awareness. So when you're present, you're aware of all these things.
Right.
People, places, things. You're aware of stimuli and you're aware of how you're reacting to it.
I feel like I have to add, I feel like your senses are more heightened because you're connected with them.
Exactly. That's
Yeah.
presence. You're here. If you're in your head, which most of us are
Right.
throughout our days, we're in our head. So once you're there and you're not present, you're just living out whatever that is in your head.
The old tapes.
All the
call
old
them.
tapes.
Yeah.
Whatever's, and all the old reactionary energy, because they happen like that.
Right.
So say something simple like, I don't know, we're just making this up. Your spouse says something and then the old reaction happens. And then all of a sudden it's, you're not listening to me or you're not supportive or don't do that. You know, now we're in an old tape
Right.
because it's so automatic. So the issue isn't the old tape. I mean, we're going to have it. It happens automatically. It's if you're present, you have choice now. You're acknowledging, oh, this is old.
Right.
Or, oh, I could do this different.
Yeah.
It's the contrast is going to happen. So if you ever say, listen to Abraham Hicks or anything, they call it contrast. I call it triggering or you get triggered. It doesn't matter again what language. It happens in this realm. It's a realm of duality.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times when people start doing this, they then get, or sort of get bummed if they get triggered. Like, why am I getting triggered again? It's like, who cares?
Right.
You're going to have contrast and you're going to get triggered. That's not the issue.
But
It's
the
what
trigger
starts-
is giving you the opportunity to be present.
Well, the trigger is giving you the opportunity to make a new
different.
choice.
Yeah.
So that's the whole point.
Right.
Right. So
Because from those old, so most people are living from their mind and through those old tapes. So if you ground yourself in presence, you have a new choice, which then changes your life because you're making a new decision.
yeah. And you're changing your perception,
Right.
which changes everything, changes all your reality.
Right.
Now, unconsciousness and how energy works is your energy is always responding to your alignment or the consciousness in the moment.
Okay.
So there's a different sort of expression of energy when you're in an old tape versus a different expression of energy when you're present and open and, you know,
Yeah.
so then energy is serving you in a completely different way.
Yeah.
Which changes
As
your
you're talking,
reality.
I can feel it. It's like the old way. It feels like that. It feels old and stagnant, where the new way, it feels like very like hopeful.
Well, it's always a reflection. So say in your old way, it's Kareen is anxiety. Kareen is, you know, piece of shit because she drank too much and blacked out and what a lame person she is.
Right.
Whatever.
No, I'm laughing because I felt like that.
And so say in this moment, you're just like, whoa, I am. And there's Kareen and whoa, this. So feel the difference in the energy expression of that.
Yeah. It's like so compassion, so much compassion and empathy.
And I think of compassion as unconditional love and complete acceptance.
Yeah.
It's just complete acceptance. So then feel what that feels like in your body. It's just complete flow.
Yeah.
So there's no blockage. It's not tight. It's open. It's grace. So then energy is just in flow and it's always serving you. But in that moment, it's serving you in compassion and love and flow and grace. And how could you not be abundant and enjoy? And like, you don't have to micromanage your energy. It already knows.
Right. And as you're talking, it's so funny because it's making me more aware of the old tape in the way, it's like I was drawing to me the same crap.
Yes. It's a constant reflection.
Yeah.
So say in that moment, you're Kareen's a piece of shit and she drinks too much or something. And I can't believe I blacked out and, whatever.
What am I going to change?
Yeah. And so then that's a reflection. You can look anywhere. You can look at this plant and go, see the plant. I'm killing plants. I'm so lame. You can look at your patio furniture and go, see, like, that's so lame. It's just, that's your perception. And so wherever you look, you're going to see reflected back how lame you are, how you're not good enough, or,
Right.
So in that compassionate expansion state, you can look at the plant, have a completely different conversation. Like, whoa, plant, you're amazing. Like, I can feel you.
Right.
Your vibration is, oh, look at my beautiful patio that I created for myself. It's a completely different reality.
That. That's so funny because I've been like, before, like old me would be like, just with material stuff. Like, for example, we have an amazing house, but then I think like, oh, I need a bigger house. I need something more. And right now with this new awareness, I am like that. Like, this is so amazing. Look at how lucky we are. Like, this is so beautiful. And the same thing with the plant thing. I do feel very connected, where I know if like one's sad or if it like needs to be watered.
Exactly. But if you're in that other space, we'll call it, or state, you'd be like, oh, plant, I'm so sorry. See?
Yeah, make it a victim too.
Yeah. I'm a piece of shit. I'm a bad plant mommy,
Yeah.
Whereas in this, you're like, oh, you're thirsty. Here, let me serve you. Let me give you some water because I so appreciate you. And it's not like you're mentally trying to force this.
No.
It's natural and organic because it's just, you're feeling it.
I'm glad that you said that because I feel like a lot of teachers, or so many books out there, and it's so complex and it feels like very unattainable. But the way you've helped me to see this, it's like very simple.
It is simple, and everyone's trying to describe it. It's just if you're reading a book, there's going to be a mental component of it because you're reading.
Right.
So sometimes it is easier to get if somebody's holding space for you and is connected to you and what you're doing and is able to kind of be on that journey and guide with you. But, all teachers do their best to be able to describe it. Right. It's challenging to describe it in a non-mental way. So I think everyone does the best they can. Mm-hmm. But in the end, you have to get it from the mind and out of the mind and into an experience. So like, say a teacher is describing how to ground. So, whatever that is for them, do this, connect this, that's very mental. You're getting directions.
Exactly.
At some point, you have to do it, be it, have the experience of groundedness. You can take the teachings, but at some point you have to have the experience of it.
Right. And so I always thought that grounding was putting your feet on the floor and connecting with the roots of the earth. And I know that was my
part of it.
Yeah, it's part of it. But now my perception has changed where I'm actually grounding to my body in the present moment.
So feel the difference between the two, because
the other one feels outside of me.
Well,
like I feel like I'm trying. It takes more work.
But feel where you're coming from
my mental.
Yes.
Yeah, because I'm trying to envision it instead of feel.
Exactly. So that's the biggest difference. It's not the thing. It's where you're coming from. So if you were actually feeling the earth, connecting, feeling the bottoms of your feet, connecting to the crystalline core center of the planet. Yeah. See how it does the same thing.
Yes.
Yes. So it's having the experience of it. It's just getting out of the mind.
That's the key, because as you were talking, I could like literally feel like the earth breathing.
Yeah. Because now you're having the experience. So the experience of it is very different than the mental theory, concept, or even visualization.
Right.
I think of visualization is great, but it's still a mental exercise because we visualize something that we've perceived already. And then we bring that to the visualization, generally speaking. But in your imagination, that's where dogs can fly and
Right.
pigs talk, that's a whole different way of experiencing. So I would prefer the imagination where the energies are freer and you're not in your head. You're
Right.
not in your mind, we'll say. It's not a mental energy. It's the imagination. It's a different dimension. It's a different energy.
So the imagination like mixed with the experience because you're feeling the
Yes.
imagination.
Yeah. So say, see how we're trying to describe it.
Yes.
And then we get mental
It's
because
hard.
we need to describe it. So we don't have that experience. But at some point, the experience of it is so feel the difference. So say we'll do it those two different ways. And we'll use you as the
guinea pig.
So take the concept of connecting your feet to the ground. There you go. Now already feel the difference because now you're in your body and your feet connecting. Before, when you were describing it, it was like a visualization of you were like in front of yourself.
Exactly.
Like
Yes.
grounding. So that already there's too much space between you and the part of you that's grounding.
And I felt very much limited to my head, where I'm just in my head, not in my body.
You're having a mental experience.
Yeah.
Not an embodied experience, we'll say.
Right. Because physically, though, it felt like just very limited to my brain.
Yeah. So both methods of grounding work fine. But if you're still having it as more of that mental experience, they're both going to have their limitations. Doesn't mean, and even in that, it's not all bad because say you're in your mind and you're talking and your mental is just going through the old tape of I am not, fill in the blank.
Right.
And then all of a sudden you're visualizing yourself on a beach or, you're on the edge of the ocean and each wave's passing sand, you're sinking. That already is a better experience, a better mental, you can already feel some benefits of that. So, you don't have to throw the baby out with bathwater, but then it's a higher levels of self-awareness. You start where you start. It's all good.
That's what I was going to say. I needed to start there.
Yeah, like we all do,
Right.
basically, because we're not taught at young ages how to get out of our minds. We're taught to be more in our minds. We go to school and that's how schools are. We get fed information, we regurgitate it. I mean, there's some schools out there that have a different kind of experience, but you get what I mean.
Yeah.
But are we taught how to breathe? Something simple like breathing. We're not taught how to breathe. We just do it automatically, but we're not aware of it.
We're not aware that we're in our head all day.
No.
I'm just going through old tapes.
Until you are.
Right.
It's a higher level of conscious.
It's a superpower, guys.
It's a higher level of self-awareness.
It's amazing.
So that's the point. So the more present you are, the more self-aware you are, the more you have conscious choice. You're consciously choosing versus the unconscious, subconscious patterning, the old tapes, making all your choices for you because you're just on that autopilot.
Right. Autopilot. So then what's the step that comes next after being the observer?
Well, first you have to become the observer.
Right. So, I'm still in the middle. I'm fluctuating between the two.
Yeah. So how did you get to the observer? Is because, people need to know how to get from mental to be a witness to themselves. I think that's, a crucial first step,
Realizing that I wasn't present, I feel like helps me.
So how did you become present?
By getting shit-faced wasted and beating the shit out of myself.
Well, not the
all of the stuff that I went through.
Well, that's the no more moment. So after you say no more, how do you make a new choice? So how did you become aware? So you reached your no more, and then for me, what I find the most useful is just to ground. Because grounding is the most underutilized thing we humans don't do, we'll say, because it gets you out of your head in such an easy way.
Right.
And it can be as simple as breathing, becoming aware of your breath as it's moving through your body. You can put a color to it to give your mind something to do. And your mind might be like, oh, the colors are changing. How fun, whatever. Right. It's just giving your mind something to do. You become aware of your chest, your back, your shoulders, your stomach, your pelvis, your legs, your knees, your calf. You're becoming aware.
Mm-hmm.
Now, automatically, you're not in the mind anymore. You're in the body.
Right.
Become aware of the feet. And then I like to consciously connect to the crystalline core center of the planet because it's like nature. It's an energy center that just does something for us. It just calm. You immediately go into like, calms the nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
And now from this space, you're not in your head.
So you become the observer by grounding because you're observing your mind and you're realizing that your mind you've been letting it control you, but it doesn't have control over you. You can make a new conscious decision.
Yeah. You can choose to be a witness to it. And that's the whole thing. It's like your mind is going to think.
Yeah.
It's a thought generating organ.
Right.
It's going to think. So it's always going to think.
Yeah. I've accepted that. Like I'm going to play old tapes and whatnot, and I'm just watching them.
Exactly. So a lot of times when we do meditation, we're trying to make the mind stop. It's like, no, that's not the point. It's just become aware of it so that you're not in it. There's a little space.
So that's weird because you just made me realize that being present it's like being in a meditative state.
Yeah. That's the whole point.
While being awake.
Exactly.
Huh.
Meditation, I think of as a pathway to reach this state.
Yes.
Right? So a lot of people meditate and it helps them do this. But meditation isn't the end goal. It's the pathway. The end goal is this state. So the whole point is to be able to just drop into the state, in my opinion. Yeah. So you can be in this state while driving. You can be in this state while you're grocery shopping, meaning you can be aware. You're conscious. You're aware. Yeah. You're present. That's a different state of being or an alignment.
Okay.
Because then you have different awareness. So in this state, feel how you have connection.
Yeah.
And so then we're here talking. That's the and state. We'll say like we're multidimensional beings. Mm-hmm. This is you being in multiple dimensions at the same time. And you're here. And you're free.
Yes.
We have moments of that. We have moments of enlightenment or moments of, and then, our minds will take over, which they do. We get caught up in something,
So is this a form of enlightenment? Because you feel free. So
yeah, it's a moment of enlightenment.
Yeah. Because I've been feeling that and it feels, best label I can find is like blissful. Yeah. And then I won't say it goes away because then I go back up into my mind and then I have to ground again.
Exactly. It's normal. You know, like that's going to happen. But feel that bliss state. Because if you do this often enough, feel how it's just in that moment. When I said that, you just dropped in and you're in it.
Yeah.
That's the point. Like, then you can just drop in. Like yoginis will do like the same pose for 20 years, do the warrior pose. In this pose, they feel all of this. Pretty soon, they can just breathe in the pose and they're embodying the pose. They haven't moved a muscle and they get the full benefit of the pose. It's a pathway to this state.
Is anyone always living in this state?
Yeah, there's embodied masters on the planet.
Huh. I want to do that.
You can. You just did. Yeah. The experience of it.
I know.
And then it's just doing it more and more and more because feel that bliss state. I mean, we call it bliss, but there's so many ingredients that need to be included in bliss. Safety is inherent. Like you're in that state. You wouldn't even have a word for unsafe because
there's just no fear.
Exist. There's just no fear. Yeah. So there's calm, there's peace, there's joy, there's clarity, there's no doubt. It's like bliss. Some people think bliss, you're just in this, expansive. But there's a lot of ingredients in bliss that just feel like if you just needed to drop into I am safe.
Right.
It's a huge one for us humans. Huge.
Yeah, I feel like that I can't even find a label to describe it. Like, because it's like a little particle of everything that you said, but there's so much more.
So much more.
Yeah.
As you become aware, this goes back to that consciousness question. It's awareness, becoming deeper and deeper levels of self-awareness. So then you're consciously creating your reality because energy is always serving you. It's always serving the consciousness. So feel how powerful that is.
It just feels like when you trust fall and you just trust it.
Yeah. And then it's just flow.
Yeah.
And you can feel in the state, there's no power in it. you don't need to manipulate or control.
You don't just need to be.
You just need to be.
Yeah.
There's no needing to, you can shine as bright as you want. They can shine as bright as they want. There's no lack.
No, at all.
So then there's no competition. There's no power struggle, power dynamics. That's freeing yourself of duality, which is, polarity.
Right. So what I've been thinking about since our session is like the people in my life who have caused turmoil. And now I have, how do I explain this? Like I have this like visualization of them of kind of like it's like we're all in a play, like Shakespeare said, and they're playing a role and they just don't know any better because their character taught Kareen X, Y, and Z. My point is I don't feel affected by them in a negative way. This is past stuff. But I also feel like I have like a fuller perspective as to like why they are the way they are.
Yeah. Cause then when we're able to be present and aware of our own shadow, subconscious, unconscious aspects, some people call it the wounded child. Some people call it the shadow, whatever label, language again. But those are the patterns. It's the aspects of self that are carrying that old perception. And so when you can be present and have compassion for that within your own self.
But I don't have to try because I feel like
you dropped in.
Yeah.
That's it.
It's just it's there.
And you can see Kareen who's anxious. You're not feeding her, meaning you're seeing her, but you're not feeding her energy, meaning you're not trying to be like, oh, Kareen, it's okay. You're just radiating compassion, which is complete acceptance, unconditional love. So there's no energy feeding or manipulation. You're just present.
Right.
Presence does everything. It's not simple.
Crazy.
You don't have to do anything else. It's just dropping into presence. But it gets tricky because some of these aspects, or some people call it false identities or wounded child, they have so much gravitational pull because they're so known and it's so how we identify. So say you had a traumatic childhood and whatever. So if your mom or dad or sister or brother or whatever is acting out this role, so to speak, when you're able to be present for the you, Kareen, aspects of self that have felt victimized by them or manipulated by them or controlled by them, and you can be in that witness observer place, then you're even better able to do that for them. So then you can see with more clarity, oh, I get it. They don't know how to do it different. And their limitations have zero to do with me.
Right.
Their limited way of knowing how to show up and be a good whatever, mother, father. You get to that point where you realize, I don't need them to change in order for me to feel better.
Right.
Because that's a lot of energy to like put all this energy in like, I'm going to do this in order for you to see me as a good daughter, a good person, a good human. That's a lot of energy to get them to change their perception so that their reflection back to you is what you want to see.
I don't need that from them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's freeing. And it's compassion because you're accepting them for who they are.
Yeah.
And we have to have some of that distance or witness or whatever so that you can see it that clearly.
Yeah.
Because their limited way of knowing how to express love or their limited way of knowing how to even connect with themselves, like they're not doing it against you. That is just how they move through the world.
Right. They're doing it to themselves. And so I have compassion because it's actually, the best label I can find is sad, but I'm not like crying for them. It's just like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize this.
Yes.
It has nothing to do with me. It's just their patterns that they're so stuck in that they can't even see.
Exactly. So you free yourself.
Yeah.
And you don't carry that old
victim.
I
didn't realize I was doing that for me. Nobody loves me, like Eeyore. And now I'm like, I'll hear it, like the old tapes, and then I'll just like laugh at it now because it's so not true.
Exactly.
So going back to the steps, what steps come next?
So first you ground, you get out of your head.
Okay.
And then you typically, most people, when you are grounded, you just get to that calm peace state.
And would we label that as enlightenment?
Well, I mean, I don't know if I know what your mind is asking and wants the little box to put it in. It will say it's a more expanded self-awareness.
Okay, that's helpful for me.
You know,
I think too, I'm like Kareen, and I think part of my soul also wants to know what to expect. Like, is this going to transform into like me being like this extreme enlightened being, or is this just how it's going to be and I'll get used to this new way of living?
Or all of it?
Or all of it. Okay.
There's no, I mean,
yeah, that's the human.
Yes. Yeah. Like it's this or that. It's like, no, and.
Right. Because there's the endless possibility based off of this new, the choices that I make from this new perspective.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's ever expanding.
I love that.
Yeah. So first you just ground, meaning become the witness. And there's lots of teachers to teach you how to do this. So there's lots of books and everything. So there's lots of resources and everyone's explaining it in their own way. And I think it's good because you know how you might read about it from 3 different sources and then that final something, you're like, oh, I get it.
Yeah.
Like it just goes clunk, clunk, you know, like
right.
you understand it. But then once you're present and you're aware and you can see, say, the human facet of Kareen with all of her aspects, you know, meaning old tapes.
Okay.
And then you're beyond.
What does that mean?
Yeah. Have the experience of it.
Okay.
And then you can, whatever that is for you.
That's exciting. Yeah, because I feel like if you tell me, then it limits it as well.
Already. Yeah. And my experience might be different than yours.
What do you want to share your experience? I'm so excited. I'm like a kid in a candy store because most people on the planet are not aware of that this ability to like be free. I mean, we talk about it and there's all these posters and sayings, and I feel like we can comprehend it from the human aspect. This is a whole nother level.
Yeah. And the consciousness level of the planet is more higher, we'll say, than it was 100 years ago.
Totally.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So now, you know, Deepak Chopra and Oprah, like they get it, remnants of this or the ideas of this into the mainstream. Mm-hmm. So now, like yoga, there's on every corner.
Right.
20 years ago, you probably wouldn't find that. Acupuncture is covered by insurance.
Yeah.
20 years ago, it was like, ooh, what? Weird needles? You know?
Yeah.
Body work is now part of maintenance and now it's, you know, covered by insurance too. Back then, it was either seen as a luxury or just for when you're in pain, you know, so.
Yeah. Even my job, it was like I used to read under a fake name because I have the judgment and people would call me or just judge me so much. And now it's just normal.
Exactly. I mean, as a medium.
Yeah.
Yeah. Totally. We've all of us who are sensitives, you know, we have protection, meaning we don't want to be put in straitjackets or,
right.
You know what I mean? Like,
I thought that.
Something. So we keep it under the radar.
Mm-hmm.
And now we can sort of express it more free because it's time. It's time on the planet. It's an awakening time on the planet. So it's time for, it's happening. Expansion is happening. So
this just reminded me of something that happened this week. So I got a thing for jury duty and I have 3 kids and I work for myself, obviously. So I'm like there's no way. I have a 2-year-old and I have no one to pick him up. And so I filled out the questionnaire online and took a screenshot and sent it to my husband. And basically one of the questions was, is there any, like, have you ever had an experience with a crime or someone that had one that would affect your ability to be a juror? And so I wrote on it, I'm a psychic medium, which means spirits talk to me. And so if the case has to do with someone being murdered, the spirit will come through and tell me, give me evidence and whatnot, and I will listen to it. And I'm not lying.
It's a perfect answer.
My husband was like, are you serious? Like, they're going to put you in a straitjacket.
No, it's the perfect answer, I think, because 1, you won't get picked.
Right.
And 2, Can you imagine the crazy stuff people write because they don't want to get picked?
I know.
You know what I mean?
I wasn't going to put on there, I'm not lying, Google me.
Yeah. It reminds me, I don't know, 30 Rock was an old series, but there was an episode in which she wanted to be seen as crazy, did not get picked. It's sort of funny. But yeah, perfect answer.
I just thought it's funny. I've evolved so much because before when I go to the doctor's office, they're like, oh, what do you do for a living? And then I would just say, I'm a stay-at-home mom or whatever. And now I'm like, I'm a medium. And then I expect to get the question. So actually now more recently, people are like, oh my God, that's so cool. They know what it is and they're more accepting of it.
Yeah.
So I do have to say that the consciousness on the planet has risen, but I also feel like there's something, I can feel it, like something coming in our time where
it's a juicy time right now because technology is moving very quickly and it'll change everything.
How so?
Work, governments, money, medicine, education.
I didn't think about that.
Everything. And technology is always, I was told this, it's always, it has to do with the level of consciousness. Technology comes from consciousness. So as the consciousness raises, technology is going to move, but technology is going to be very fast and it'll have interesting effects.
I just got the chills.
With AI and all of that, it's changing quickly.
Is that why all the alien stuff's coming out now? Because it has to do with consciousness.
I'm not sure.
And there's like a correlation with their technology, right?
I'm not an expert on that. Maybe. I mean, I know that they're, how would I say it? When you're open and you're receiving wisdom, it can come from other realms. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I just find it interesting that all these documents are coming out and there's been so many sightings and whatnot. And I mean, one component is like, yay, aliens exist and I knew it. But the other part is the fact that more people are being forced to face their belief systems.
Oh, yeah.
I love that.
Now, I mean, you're talking about the beyond. So feel this. So say you have a soul self, right?
Right.
And it has all different expressions in the world of separation, we'll call it, which include other beings. So then
you're saying that I have a component, an aspect of me that is a facet
that comes from other realms.
Yeah. I know.
Sometimes you're getting information from your own self.
Yeah.
It might be in the form of that alien being, or I call them other life forms, but you know what I mean? So how fun is that?
I know. It's funny that you say that because the other day, 2 days ago, when I was having like the whole disassociation thing happen, I had this voice in my head that made me realize that part of it is it's connecting with something else. And then sometimes I come back to the present moment so quickly that it like jolts me. And then Kareen freaks out.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's so cool.
Yeah. But then as that happens, Kareen becomes more and more familiar with that. Mm-hmm. And then you're present more and more. So then it becomes less jolty. You're more in trust, and knowingness. So then that whole experience evolves or changes or shifts.
Yeah. What has helped me, and I don't know if you're going to disagree with this, but has actually been marijuana, because I feel like I tried everything to work past the anxiety issue, and I tried to get hypnotized, and I had talked to the practitioner about the issue in depth, and I had told her it kind of feels like when you're like really stoned, like you're like kind of out of it. And she's like, well, why can't you just perceive it that way? And so after she said that, I was like, so I try to get in my head, okay, like, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like I try to see it from that lens. And so then it's kind of, marijuana has like held my hand with not fearing it anymore. Mm-hmm. I don't feel like I'm always going to need it. And I mean, definitely have outgrown it from a long time ago, but I feel like it's helped me not be so fearful.
Whatever works. I mean,
because it's scary.
Yeah, totally. I think whatever works. I mean, in the end, we listen to our own guidance, our own wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
So if that helps, it might be work for you better than an anti-anxiety, pharmaceutical.
Right.
Like
it
you
has.
have to sort of.
It's different for everyone though, because I do feel like some people need meds. Yeah. I've done everything, and I also have this knowing that it's not always. I'm not going to need it. It's like held my hand and got me to a new chapter, and then I'll let it go.
I don't have judgment of any of our tools.
Yeah.
Whatever they are. Mm-hmm. It's finding the one that works for you the best.
Right.
And the more we can let go of judgment, the freer we can be. So say you've tried it. Maybe you've tried some pharmaceutical ones and this and that. And then you figure out like what works best for me.
Right. Not what everyone else is telling me, because that's what I was making decisions based off before.
Yeah. And so it's all part of the process. As you increase your levels of self-awareness, you can even let go of the old stories or the old belief systems about anything.
Right.
And be able to just be present and tune in.
Yeah.
Is this what my body needs right now? Is this,
Yeah. It's like making more conscious choices consciously.
Yes.
Like you're aware that you're consciously making choices.
Without judgment. Because we get so in that duality of this is wrong or this is right. It's just an experience.
Yeah.
So say you made what your mind might call a wrong decision because you made a decision and it didn't, you had a life experience that wasn't pleasant. Mm-hmm. And then in our minds, we might be like, oh, I fucked up. I made the wrong decision, blah, blah, blah. Or it's like, well, I know now that's not the best for me. So now I'll move forward. It's all perception.
Yeah, that's how I feel about the drinking. Like, I'm not mad about it. I'm actually thankful for the experience.
Yeah. You let go of the judgment. Nothing blocks energy more than judgment.
Yeah.
It just blocks it in our bodies. It blocks it up in the mental.
Because then there's the shame. It's judgment, and then you shame yourself for it.
So much shame. Like, that's the one thing all of us humans, reaching higher levels of enlightenment is really letting go of all that shame.
Yeah.
And guilt.
Yeah.
Shame and guilt. Two biggies.
Oh my gosh, the guilt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's been extremely helpful for me as well. The last thing I want to talk about is you always tell me that this is my remembered life. What does that mean? I've been like trying to find all of the things that you have taught me. There's like not any books on. I can't find any information on
Probably
it.
because I'm making up my own language. So I think of levels of consciousness.
Okay.
So there are books on this. I'm trying to remember this was a tiny book I read, but it was so helpful in how they describe certain levels of consciousness. And I think of it similar. I mean, mentally, we can get so in the linear rigidity of it, but really, I think of it as a lens of compassion, of acceptance. I think of astrology the same way. Like, astrology is like a language of compassion. So if you see sort of how you're wired and all of that, you don't judge it so much. You're like, oh, well, I'm a Taurus. So I'm a fixed earth. I'm not going to be blah, blah, blah. Like, you don't beat yourself up so much.
You accept it instead of judging it.
And to even get beyond the limitation of it, because some people will go, well, I'm not that, so I can't. It's like, no, you can change anything. But I just think of it as a language of compassion. So in this book, I wish I could remember it. It's such a good little book. It was teeny. It was like a pamphlet. But he had a scale of like 1 through 4 levels of consciousness. Level 1 is like, well, we would call him a new soul, meaning just come in to play in this realm. And so you're going to be just getting used to having a physical body, duality, time, space, the veiling, the forgetting who you are. You're navigating a different realm.
So hardcore human.
Yeah, hardcore human. Like survival.
Yeah.
Consciousness level 2, you're really getting it down, which means you're playing in duality in better and better ways, which means you're playing in power, meaning you're learning how to like get power, safety, blah, blah. You might then play in the other end of the spectrum where you're the victim,
When you say play in power, what do you mean?
Well, I think of duality as like, because I deal with energy so much, as it's a system in which there's two polarities. So it could be the have not, the right, the wrong, the good, the bad. And so you're on one end of that, you're like wrong or you're right.
So it's like black and white thinking.
Yeah, but there's all the tension in between.
Okay.
You know, because you have all the things in between black and white or right and wrong or good and bad or outside, inside. So you're in that realm in which you're always going to feel the tug of the other side of the polarity.
Okay.
So if you're playing in the biggest one, I think of power as playing in victim, victimizer. These are identities and perceptions. So if you're a victim and you're identifying that way, somebody has to be your victimizer. So the abuser. So it's either going to be a spouse, a family, a government, an education, a health, whatever. Like it's a perception.
Right.
So then wherever you look, you're either going to have an ally or you're going to have the abuser. So then you're playing out these energy dynamics through relationships.
That's so funny. I didn't realize it was like that. But it is. It's so true.
Yeah.
You always have an ally and then with the abuser.
Yeah. It's like, that's just how it works in that dynamic. And then, or you're the abuser, but you probably don't identify as the abuser.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because who wants to identify as an abuser? But you're just...
Then you act like a victim if you're an abuser. You
act like a victim sometimes, or you just know how to play in power really well. Okay. So most of our probably religious leaders and government leaders are probably really good in this conscious level too. Because they know how to play in power.
Okay.
You get it. General gist. Conscious level 3 is your awakening, meaning you're starting to remember. You're done. You've reached your enough point. Like, I'm done with this. I don't want to play the victim or the victimizer. I want to free myself. And so you start having those life experiences where you are more sensitive. You sort of feel that there's something more that you want to get beyond. You kind of go into that existential. You start, it's those lifetimes in which you meditate or you start awakening. So getting to that point of embodied mastery,
So I had 3.
I mean, see that where our minds go. This is why I hate
I know.
Because then if it's like
in between a 3 and a 4, a 2 and a 3.
Exactly. So then what happens? It's funny, right? So it's just because our minds are linear and they think in hierarchy. So if I were to say, like, who the hell am I to tell you what you are? You can just tune into yourself and feel it. But if I were to tell you, oh, you're a 3 or a 3 or 4, whatever, then what does your mind do?
Then that creates a limiting belief.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden you're like, now I have to get to a 4. Yeah. Now you're in your mind.
Totally. And the whole point, and I'm not grounded in the present.
Yeah. Presence is everything. Like in the present moment.
It's so funny.
You can be a 4 and then, lost it. You know what I mean? Like,
totally.
So that's why I would say, I just use these as an example.
Yeah.
Now I can't remember what your original question was.
Oh, we were going through the consciousness levels.
But before...
the realization.
Yeah. So then the remembered life or the realized life is when you get it. Like, oh, this is the human facet, but it's an illusion, this whole separation.
Right.
Like, as a human, I feel like I'm separate from divine, that there's this heaven or whatever, however you perceive it.
Yeah. Isolation.
And you realize it's all an illusion.
Yeah.
It's that duality is duality, but it's an illusion. It's a real illusion. It's a dimension, but you can be beyond it and go into what a lot of people call the third round of creation, which is meaning you're creating not out of duality anymore, which is free energy. It's totally different life experience. And so
you're creating from that present moment and knowing who you truly are.
Exactly. There's no more duality. There's no more seeing the reflections of who you are so you know who you are. You're in the I am that I am.
Okay.
And then energy moves
from
that place. And it feels weird because it's the highest point of creation, but our minds aren't involved. So you're like, what am I creating? It's like, who cares? Like, it's a different alignment or sensation. So I think of a remembered life as like you're remembering, oh yeah, you're waking up from your deep slumber.
Yeah.
So that you can maybe even be in this realm and be all of who you are.
Yeah.
Some people call it mastery, being a master, embodied mastery.
Is that what like Jesus was?
Yeah, he was in a state of embodied mastery, meaning he was here and knowing all of who he was.
And that's why he had no fear, because he knew who he was.
There's no fear because you lose your fear of death. That's one of humans' biggest fears, death. I don't exist anymore. So feel what it feels like to like let go of that fear. That's a biggie.
Yeah, I know. I can.
Because it's in the physical body. So say even if you...
Which is limited, because after this dies, I'm still going to be here.
You still will exist.
Yes, I will still exist.
You will still exist. But tell that to your brain.
My clients.
Or well, they know because they're coming to you to have a communication. So they have to have a belief in
totally, that's true.
Beyond, right? Yeah. So, but
my brain is attached to the Kareen form.
And there is a fear in the physical body. It's in the cells. It's in, there's a deep, it's in our DNA to survive. And so even if we might not be afraid of moving to the next, whatever, moving beyond this world, our physical bodies will still have a physical reaction to dying or something. So then it's being so present in that doesn't freak you out and cause a
nervous breakdown
or anything, a breakdown. Yeah. Or something.
So but then Jesus had no fear of dying. My question was going to be, is there the possibility of aligning Kareen with the essence of who I am? So then that Kareen, like my mind and my old tapes don't get in the way anymore. Is that the master?
Yeah.
Got it.
Meaning you're expanding out. So in the same way that you can see aspects of Kareen that are playing in anxiety and victim or whatever, and you're here.
Right.
Kareen evolves, right? She's re-identifying.
Okay.
Right?
Right.
So then you can feel your, we'll call it master self or more enlightened being self. So feel that for you right now because it exists already because, of course, we live here where we have time so linear. So your mind might think of it as future self because you might not identify that way right now, but it already exists.
So funny. We do that. Like it's far reaching where it's the future, but I can do it right in this moment.
It all exists now. Because in this realm, time is linear. Time doesn't work that way in other realms. Because in that now moment, that expansive feeling, you're beyond time. So right now, we'll just call it, what do you want to call her? You can call her anything. You could call her master self or...
I like master self.
So feel master self. There.
It feels like just all knowing and trusting.
That already exists.
And it's not confusing. Because then when I think of it from the Kareen aspect, it does feel like I have to do this, that, and the other thing to attain it. And and I complicate it.
If you have connection to master self, we'll call it, that's it. That's all you have to do. In presence, you can be both.
Amazing.
It's not this or that. It's and.
But Kareen,
so you have choice.
Right. And so I feel like the way that Kareen perceives it is like from these experiences, I'm going to attain this. And maybe that happens for people where they start making different decisions. And so they see the physical transformations in their lives.
Yeah. This is juicy, right? So feel that you were just talking about, like Kareen thinks that if I'm this, and typically Kareen's going to think something along the lines of she's a better human, meaning, her physical body is going to be great and she's going to be abundant. And now that Kareen's still playing in duality, meaning whatever, like feel her. Now feel master Kareen.
Oh, so that Kareen feels outside of me and then master Kareen. Hold on, let me go back to it. Okay, so I have to move past the mind.
Yes. And then what does Master Kareen care about?
Nothing. Like, it doesn't matter.
Exactly.
Because it's like, I know whatever comes to in the form of the human stuff is like meant.
It's just,
I don't need to be in control.
Exactly. You're in command and you're in complete trust.
Yes.
But it's not mental.
Yeah.
It's very different.
It's so hard to explain this stuff because it's
very
all feeling.
Because it's all feeling, but you're a feeler. That's why you can do it. And that's why I say, let's not talk about it, because talking about it is just
a mind
feel
fuck.
It. Yes.
I'm like trying to jump between both ends.
And then people get mental about it and then make up a rule. And it's like, no rules. Just have the experience.
Okay, I like that you say that, because I feel like and again, all of the stuff that I learned has served me, but I didn't realize that there's rules. Like, there's a rule to ground. There's a rule to clear yourself. There's a rule. I'm not doing it right. And then there's all this fear.
Yes, I would think of it as just pathways. There's lots of pathways, and there's no wrong pathway. So feel how freeing that feels.
Yeah,
like you
just trust.
Oh. You just trust. Like if this way of grounding works for you, great. Some point it might not work. Try a different pathway. But typically the pathway just gets you to that experience state, or that alignment, or that state of being. Once you have that and you hone your ability to just drop into it. So then you don't really need the pathway so much. You might need it someday when,
shit hits the fan.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. You might go, you might not be able to access it so easily. But it's really about being able to drop into that place so you can be present and make conscious choice.
So funny, because I always envisioned myself attaining, I'll use enlightenment. Mm-hmm. And so I'm laughing because it's so funny, because it was already there. I was like putting limits on it because of my mind and my beliefs and whatnot.
It's already there. You hit the nail on the head. Now, if we're, can't pay our rent, or in a terrible relationship, or say have bad health, it's really hard to get our minds to go there. Yeah. Because we are feeling very limited. Mm-hmm. So that becomes a challenge, is how to get beyond that. And so that's why I say start with grounding. And then from there, feel you being a witness, breathe, soften, open, which is completely counterintuitive when we're in some kind of crises. Mm-hmm. Because when we're in crises, we get tight, right? Whatever the crisis is. And then that's how we start to be able to access that feeling that you just had. Because it's very hard when we're going through these things in our life to know that truth. Yeah. You already are.
But and then it becomes a mind fuck, because then you're like, why don't I feel it? And then
exactly.
And then you start blaming yourself. And,
yes. And then same old pattern.
Right. I know, because I had that bout of depression in March, and it's definitely challenging to be able to separate from the sadness.
And those are hard, because it's not just the mental emotional patterns. There's a physical component to depression or anxiety. There's a chemistry in the mind and a chemistry in the body. And so that's why I say, I don't judge any tool. If you need some kind of tool, whatever it is for you, if it's drugs, supplements, walks on the beach, meditation, yoga, chanting, sound is a great tool, because it just moves energy like that, and you don't even have to do anything. There's lots of tools, but it does get challenging when you're in a depressed state, because you're so locked into that energy of, whatever that is, whatever thought forms and belief systems are in that state. Yeah. So at some point there comes a right use of will, meaning you reach that enough point. No more. Yeah. Can't do this anymore. Yeah. And it gives you the courage and the strength to do it different.
Yeah. I'm just thinking back on that. And it's funny, because as you're talking, I'm thinking about how all the people who use psychedelics it's to move past that limited mind.
Totally.
I just realized that too.
Totally.
Huh.
Yeah. And for some people it works. Others not. It's just whatever you're guided.
Yeah. You're guided by just having a pull to it. I feel like a lot of people don't trust that.
Yeah. It's part of
the
self-trust.
Yeah.
It's part of duality.
Yeah. What else? Do you have anything else you want to cover? I feel like we covered a lot.
Yeah. That's a lot. So.
It's a lot. Yeah. Well, fucked their heads. All right. So if people want to get us, do you do distance sessions?
I do.
So over the phone?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so if people want to get in contact with you, do you have them send you an email or?
Email or text.
Okay. What's your phone number?
619-787-7771.
I like the 777.
Yeah. It's easy. And then the email is KERRI dot F as in Frank, INNECY @gmail.com.
All right, guys. So if you want to book a session with her, highly, highly recommend.
Mm-hmm.
And then you don't have social media, right?
I don't.
Yeah, that's amazing.
I don't know if it's amazing. I haven't been drawn to it yet.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean I won't be at some point, but it just hasn't resonated yet.
Yeah, maybe it will at some point.
Maybe it will.
So draining.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. Everything's an energy dynamic. So if you think of, say, I'll call it the morphic field, but the energy of the internet, that's a lot.
I know.
Because it's mass consciousness and you're in it. And even if you don't know it, it has an effect. You might just feel tired or this or that, but it's a lot of energy. And so then you go on social media pages where there's a lot of interesting energy dynamics playing out where people want to be seen as, a lot of, we'll say, energy feeding, meaning like, I need this, like I'm posting this, so I'll get this. And then all that negativity, it's just a lot. So just be aware. It's not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. You can use it however you want to use it. It's just to know the effects it has so that you can choose it when you feel up for it. And then if you're feeling a little low, maybe you don't choose it.
Yeah.
Conscious.
Just I take breaks. I just know, I feel like that's good advice for other people. I'll just have this knowing I just need a break from it. And then I won't get on for like 6 weeks.
Yeah. And it just depends, of course, on how people use it. So if you have yours geared to where it's just family and fun and animal videos or whatever, then it's positive and it might have a positive effect on you. But a lot of people, there's just, it's a platform in which people feel free to express the full gamut of duality, the negative, right, and the light, so it just is what it is.
Like competition with each other and they don't even realize it.
Yeah. So I do have Instagram and I mostly watch puppy videos.
I do on YouTube with my son, but those are my favorite.
The animal videos, that's what I watch. I love that.
Oh my gosh, I love you so much. Well, thank you so much for being on. I feel like this is going to help so many people. And then we'll definitely have to have you on again.
Anytime.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Are you wanting more spiritual wisdom? If so, go to my website where you can sign up to be a patron. You can choose how much to donate, and you will receive free guided meditations, bonus episodes, angelic guidance, and have a few shots at winning the session with me. Visit my website, mediumkareen.com.